Welcome. I'm Dr. Ann Clark, and I'm here, delighted to be here, with former San Diego Mayor Jerry Sanders. Jerry was also the chief of police. You've suggested you like to be called Jerry these days.
I do.
And the topic we're talking about today is violence and tragedy on school campuses. With your experience, Jerry, as a former chief of police, an officer, the tragedy of this unprovoked, unwarranted violence, just tell us how you view it. What's going on here?
Well, we've seen a pattern of this for a long time. I mean, I was a SWAT sergeant when Brenda Spencer went onto the schoolyard in the mid-'70s. I think we see this go back probably into the '60s with some of the violence on college campuses, and we see it continue. And I think a lot of it comes from isolation. Isolation of the students, isolation from family, from friends. A lot of it comes from students who have been bullied. And we know that bullying is a big issue, at least in our elementary and our middle schools and possibly into high school. Those people become more and more isolated, and then they decide to act out at the place where they feel the least comfortable or the place where they've been hurt the most.
Where they've been hurt the most. And in the recent shootings, Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, these tragedies, some patterns emerge. Disenfranchised students who feel like they've not been listened to, that they've been slighted in some way. That's part of this isolation.
Well, it is part of the isolation, and if you look, there's also a family history in many of these situations where the family probably needed help. They were isolated at home. And then they took that to school and felt like they were isolated even more there, and they'd either been bullied or pushed off into a corner because of how they looked, how they acted, and they go back and decide to take action at a place where they've really been hurt.
You mentioned the parents. I, as a parent, have observed that the parents of the perpetrators of these acts don't receive very much publicity. For example, at Columbine, the reporters were actually in the home and photographed an unlocked gun rack that included assault rifles. Some of the perpetrators are as young as 8 years of age, 11, 12, 14. So these guns have come from the home. The press seems to kind of ignore the parental responsibility. How do you, as a former officer, a former mayor, how do you view the parental responsibility here?
Well, I mean, there's a very definite parental responsibility, especially in keeping guns safe. You know, my suggestion is not to keep a gun in the house. If you are going to have guns, and you either have a gun safe or you remove the firing mechanisms or you keep ammunition out of the house. We have found that many of these people who have done these things have had a huge fascination with weapons, and probably a lot of that was formed at home where they had weapons and they were able to see them, or the video games. A lot of the different things show a lot of violence now, and I think it fascinates a lot of people who are right on the fringes.
So there are some laws governing the securing of weapons, homes, and licensing, and it doesn't seem like any of these parents of perpetrators have been prosecuted for violations of the law.
You know, I think what's happened in a lot of cases is you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes, but I think that people are probably hesitant when there's been a tragedy like that to dig into the home as much as they probably should have. To hold people accountable. You know, some of these weapons obviously are pretty easy to pick up anywhere. There are over 300 million weapons in the United States, so it's not hard for one of these folks to get some of these weapons, and I think it's just kind of swept under the rug.